Alright, the pet spotlight for today will be on the Fragment of Anger. Fragment of Anger is a really nice tier 1 undead pet who does AoE damage, just like the other two. Actually, you know what? I think there's 3 tier 1 undead pets who do AoE damage. I mean, 3 other ones besides the Fragment of Anger. We've got Graves, obviously, who's the best, Weebomination, and the Fossilized Hatchling, who is outshined by Graves. He does what he does, but better. But Fossilized Hatchling also has a heal as well, so he's pretty much just as good. So, Fragment of Anger, where do you get it from? He's a drop from a boss in Black Temple called the Reliquary of the Lost. Is that his name, or is his name something else? No, I'm looking at Wowhead right now. I have it up. That looks like that's his name. I thought he'd have like his own name. It sounds like the name of a zone or something. He's from the face boss. He's pretty easy to get to. You just have to kill like the first 2 bosses in Black Temple and you can go straight to him without having to kill anything else. So if all you want to do is just farm a Fragment of Anger, he's pretty easy to down on a max level character. A little bit difficult if you don't have a max level character because the second phase does do reflect damage, so it's possible to kill yourself. Anyways, let's see. The thing is that fight also drops a few other pets. Here, let me see. I have a team that just has nothing but all the pets he drops. Fragments. You see, besides the Fragment of Anger, that boss will also drop Fragment of Suffering and Fragment of Desire. These 2 are not as good as Anger, but they're decent as well. Anger is just the only tier 1 of the bunch and the one you're actually after. So, anyways, back to Fragment of Anger. Let's see, I have 2 of these and this one's on a different team. We'll list all 7 teams. Let's open up the best one out of all of them, Undead Overlords. Alright, Fragment of Anger. Now that you know where to get him, he's just a drop from a boss. You can also buy him off the auction house. That's how I got mine, I think. I also bought another one for some reason. You can actually do pretty fine on a team with just 3 of these guys because the Undead racial is that good. But the same thing with like 3 Weebominations, or if you could have 3 Graves, that'd be like a really good team too. Fragment of Anger is good enough where you can just run 3 of them in a team and win a lot. That's how good this guy is. Okay, so why is he so good? Well, I'll tell you. For one, he's an undead. The undead racial allows you on average to get off 2 more abilities than the average pet, because the racial allows you to come back to life and be immortal for 1 round where you can't be killed. But during the turn you're killed, you can still, use your attack that turn, since most undead pets are kind of slow. Fragment of Anger is no exception. He has middle of the pack speed, 260. 260 is like basic amount of speed. If a pet has no modifiers to speed and his class or pet family he belongs to has no modifiers to speed, their speed will be 260. Like, Graves is slow. He's purposefully slow as shit. Weebomination is slow too, 244. 260 is like middle. It's the vanilla speed. So he has vanilla speed, 260. He's not very fast. That means on a normal pet, if you got killed, you die without being able to use your abilities that turn. On an undead pet, when they get killed, they get to use their ability that turn, plus another ability on the turn after that. So we're a flying type pet, basically any pet besides undeads or mechanicals. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Of the 10 pet types, the other 8 do not get that chance to get off an extra ability before when they die. They'll just die and you'll be like, oh great, now it's the deal with the other 2 pets. Since undead pets come back to life, they get to hit you again, and another turn during the next hit. Mechanical pets, they get that too. They'll survive a hit. But on the next turn, if they're still slower than an opponent, they'll probably just die since they don't really have that much health left. While undeads don't have to worry about that, they can just get off another ability. So, being able to get off 2 hits when another pet would usually die is a really good... it's the best racial out of all the pets. There's no one argues that it's not the best. People always argue about that it should be nerfed because it is just really that good. Undead pets have a very unfair advantage, and that's why there's so many tier 1 pets that are undead, just because their racial's so good. If they do like anything extra on top of that, that just makes them even better. Now, he does do a few things on top of having that ridiculous ratio. First off, we've got the Spirit Fire Beam. Spirit Fire Beam just does 231 damage to the active pet, plus 231 damage to all pets in the back line. It does the same amount of damage no matter how many pets are out on the field, similar to Bone Storm. There are also abilities that just do split damage, like Grave Destruction or Cleave, where it just does the damage to the entire team. It has a set amount of damage and it will just split it. So if there's only one pet up, it'll only do 336 damage to that one pet. If not, then it'll split that 3 ways between all 3 pets. Spirit Fired Beam always does 231 damage to each pet that's alive. If one pet's dead, it's not like it all of a sudden just starts splitting damage between the remaining 2, it just keeps doing the same amount. So you want to use Spirit Fire Beam when your opponent still has all 3 pets alive, because that's when it's at its maximum effect. And because it does this, it allows you to break decoys. Abilities like Cleave, which split the damage, don't break decoys, and in fact they just get blocked by decoy. Except Grave Destruction, but that's because Grave Destruction destroys objects. Grave Destruction is ridiculous. It already does a crap ton of damage. It really doesn't also need to destroy objects in both players' teams, but it does. So Graves is like an exception. He's like a super tier 1 pet. He's like a tier 0 pet, I would actually call him. But yeah, Spirit Fire Beam, since it does the damage 3 times no matter what, if your opponent has 3 pets out and they use a decoy, it's going to take up 2 of the decoy hits and then still hit that 1 other time, so it breaks decoy in 1 turn while still doing a little bit of damage. Unless your opponent only has 1 pet alive and uses a decoy, then it's just going to count normal, like 1 attack. So he's pretty good against most meta teams. His decoy is kind of a big problem to deal with in PvP because it's a pretty good ability. And he can deal with it, so that's great. He also has Soul Rush. Spirit Spikes is good too, but it's only good on fast pets, and Fragment of Anger is not fast, so it's kind of wasted on him. Soul Rush though, Soul Rush is good on any pet just because it does a ton of damage and it has a chance to stun. It has a tiny chance to stun, but that's not really that big of a deal because it just does a crap ton of damage. 463 damage is about as much as a Maul. It has a turn more cooldown, I think. Let me look at a Maul pet. Maul does about 500. Oh, no, Maul does more. But then again, Curious Wolvar Pup is a power type, while Fragment of Anger is not. It does about as much damage as Maul. It hits hard and has a chance to stun. Sometimes you get lucky with the stun. If you get a stun, that's great. If not, that's fine too, because Soul Rush just hits really damn hard. And then for his last ability, he just has 2 basic attacks. They both do the same exact amount of damage. It's just the only difference is in their type of damage. Spirit Fire Bolt does magical damage. You really don't want to take it because Soul Rush and Spirit Fire Beam already do magic damage, and you really want to diversify your damage sources in PvP. So you would take Seath just so you have the elemental damage instead. Seath also has one other benefit besides just diversifying your ability types, in that the second most popular pet in PvP behind Undeads are mechanical pets, and then mechanical pets take extra damage from elemental damage. So not only can you break decoys, mechanical Pandaren Dragoline is probably the most popular mechanical type PvP pet. You can not only break its decoy, but absolutely destroy him with Seath. That hits for extra damage against him, so he's pretty good against one of the top tier pets. So he's a nice little counter to him. He also takes less damage from breath. He's actually like a really good counter to mechanical Pandaren Dragoline, and you do see quite a bit of him because the Pandaren Dragoline is really good. So I think that's it. You don't ever take Enrage. You can if you want. It increases your damage by 100%, and you take 50% more damage. It has no cooldown, so you just keep using it to boost up Soul Rushes every time it's off cooldown. Enrage is really good for boosting up Soul Rush. Enrage is only really good on abilities that have cooldowns, and he has a really nice cooldown that he could use Enrage with. But Spirit Fire Beam is just a lot better, because Enrage requires a turn to set up, and in PvP there is tons of pets who can just straight up block it. Like in the turn you use Enrage, you can just switch into a Pandaren Dragoline and throw down a decoy, or switch into a Rabbit and dodge it. If your opponent has a dodge, they'll be able to dodge the powered Soul Rush coming up. But you could also just do it if you want to have fun. It's not bad, but you'll be taking extra damage, and he doesn't live very long anyway, because usually when they see a Fragment of Anger come out, they're going to try to kill it as soon as possible. And then, like I said before, Spirit Spikes is a good ability on fast pets. It's just Fragment of Anger is not fast. So, if you're using like a Dazzling Dance team, here let me bring up a Dazzling Dance user. Dazzling Dance, which increases the speed of all pets in your team by 25%. Since he has vanilla speed, I actually know how much it gets increased to. It gets brought up to 325 with Dazzling Dance out. 325 is the same exact speed as an SS type, which I actually have right here. This is a vanilla SS type, meaning its stats are pretty baseline. So, an SS type is 325 speed. It'll make them exactly as fast as an SS type that doesn't have family bonuses, which is enough to outspeed a lot of pets. So, if you have a Dazzling Dance, Spirit Spikes is a actually pretty good choice, because we've got Vengeful Porcupet here, another tier 1 pet, who's basically tier 1 because he's able to increase his speed and just use Spirit Spikes. Spirit Spikes is actually pretty damn good. Actually, no, I should probably make a team that uses Dazzling Dance with Spirit Spikes now that I'm thinking about it. No one will see that coming. So yeah, the other abilities are totally usable, but usually you take Soul Rush and Spirit Fire Beam because they're both just really good, and Seath, but you can take Spirit Fire Bolt too if you want. You don't have to diversify your outputs of damage. It's a smart idea to do that just in case, you know, you're going against a mechanical pet and you'll just be completely screwed because you don't have anything, because mechanical pets actually take less damage from magic abilities. So if you're going against that mechanical Dragonling who you can absolutely destroy if you take Seath, if you decide to take Spirit Firebolt instead, you'd be at a huge disadvantage because all three of your abilities would be magic type and he would just counter you completely. Even though you take less damage from breath, you just wouldn't be able to do enough damage to kill him in time. While with Seath, you'd be absolutely just to melt him. He would just melt under Seath. Okay, I think that's enough. Basically all of his moves, I don't want to say they're viable, but you can use them in certain situations. It's not like other tier 1 pets where they're only tier 1 because they have these movesets. Fragment of Anger, he's only tier 1 if you really take Spirit Fire Beam with Soul Rush. The reason he's tier 1 and the other fragments aren't is because he has the Spirit Fire Beam available to him, and in fact he's the only pet in the game who has this AoE ability. I have 2 Fragment of Angers, that's why it's shown both of them. One of them's nicknamed, the other one's not. But yeah, he's the only pet in the game with Spirit Fire Beam. The other fragments don't have it. So he actually has the option with AoE, and AoE, it's a strong AoE at that too. And it's on a short cooldown, it's only 3-round cooldown. It's almost as strong as a Bone Storm, without the downside of taking 10% of your health as damage after using it. It's not as strong, but it's almost as strong. It only does like 20 less damage, which is pretty damn good. So he's really tier 1 because he has Spirit Fire Beam. And he's Undead. And he has Soul Rush available to him. So he's able to hit really hard. But if you decide to take like Spirit Spikes, you'll be fine as long as you keep Spirit Fire Beam. If you decide to use Enrage and Soul Rush, you're playing a gimmick team and he's no longer a tier 1 pet. But you can still do fine if you get lucky against your opponents, but if you're going against a good team, they'll be able to counter it no problem. Unless they don't have a dodge, in which case you can actually do quite a bit of damage with that. It's not bad by any stretch of the imagination, it's just not as good as just using straight out Spirit Fire Beam, because Spirit Fire Beam is basically why he's tier 1. I'm not gonna lie. Spirit Fire Beam. Soul Rush is just like icing on the cake.